Hello, welcome, and thank you for helping me celebrate Mel W scrapbooking. This is Amanda with Crafting with Amanda, and I have a May I Scrap Lift You layout for today that I am doing with this photo from the termite tenting of the house we purchased in California. Termite tenting and testing and dry rot stuff was all new to us, so this was a new experience. I'm going to tell you a few of the things that I'm going to use. This is a new stencil kit that's only available during May, and it's from the Dream Maker set. There's some beautiful paper. And then there's the stencil. It's actually a 12 by 12 stencil, but I cut it into 4 pieces. And then I also like to do sampling or swatches of my stuff so that I know what I have. And here I have leftovers of the Hey Handsome papers because that's the set that I've been using. That and a little bit of Cosette for our house remodel photos from the California house. But with the tent being that dark, rich, almost pine green from Hey Handsome, I went ahead and pulled this paper. I just thought it would be perfect. And so on my May I Scrap Lift You for this month, it is from Tara O'Rourke, and I will have her link for Instagram and channel down below in the video description, but you can see her layout here in the corner. And she's done very vibrant colors, and the Hey Handsome has some of those rich colors, but my background is going to be a little more muted. But I wanted to do some of the layering behind the photo that she did. She has like 3 different layers and then stitching on it, and then the wonderful mixed media that all lands on. So I am trying to get back to working on making layers behind photos. So we're always getting better at things. So here I went and cut all the different layers and papers, and then I'm distressing the edges to kind of rough them up. She had those in her photo as well. And then I got out my little so-and-so, that's what it's called, machine. And I'm not going to show you all the sewing because with where my camera angle is, it's just over top of the machine. But I did want to show you a couple tricks as we go along today. So for a sewing machine sew, I pull both of the threads to the back side. And for me, it's normally a little easy. You can normally take the thread that's on the back side and pull up on it a little bit, and it'll pull a loop through from the front that you can normally get your pin under. I had a little more trouble with the second one than the first. But once I get both threads to the back side, I go ahead and just put a little bit of tape down. It probably doesn't need it because it is on the back side, but it just makes sure that it's not going to come unraveled. So I went ahead and did the rest of it off camera, and then I'm just tacking down my photo here on all these layers. I need to make sure to center it and that I'm matting all of the layers that don't go all the way through because I was saving paper. And then I found that the word paper here, I had roughed it up, but it just wasn't distressed enough. So I'm going to go ahead and do it a little rougher this time. And now I'm taking one of my gessoed White Daisy cardstocks. This is something that I do from time to time. I grab like 20 of them and just gesso them all in one day. And so here I'm going to start with the pine ink and 1/4 of the Dream Maker stencil. And I'm just kind of using my photo matting as an idea of how far out I need this to go and try to honor Tara's layout. And so I'm going to speed this up here in a minute, or a moment I should say. So I'm going to show all the steps but not in real time. So here I've sped this up, and you can see with the blender brush how there's some dark areas and light areas, and I'm going to overlap them. And for me, that's kind of what makes mixed media fantastic, is the layers and the textures. And I don't really do any texture as far as texture paste or any kind of the pearl or any of that. It's all just inks, but I will add some water, and unfortunately it's hard to see on the camera when I add the water, but it really does change the look of the whole stenciled background. So now I'm taking that Paprika ink and just putting it through some of those circles, and then here are kind of like the hashtags, hash marks, they're just slashes, and I'm not doing a lot of this, and it's with the Harbour ink, and that first one that I did too light. I wanted to do it darker, so it will take me quite a bit to line this back up again, but once I see through and get it lined up, then I go ahead and darken some of those images a bit. And then I decided I needed one more color to kind of soften things, and I didn't want to use Toffee. I just thought that would be too dark, so I grabbed this shortbread color because it just has this warm, creamy yellow base to it, and I just thought that would be perfect for this layout. I can also see using these stencils again in many combinations with stamps for some of the heritage photos that I still have to do. Now this is the lid to a Pringle can, and I'm going to slow us down again, and I thought I was just going to kind of wash over this and kind of loosen all the edges, but if you look, I noticed right away that it was going to actually pull up too much of the ink. It was going to almost erase it. So instead, I'm just using my atomizer of water and spraying the whole thing, and some of it's going to pool. I'm going to go ahead and help it maneuver around a little bit. Most of what we're seeing in the center is going to be hidden by my photos, but I want the edges to kind of have a little bit of a feathered out look. So I'm going to let that dry to the side, and while that's drying, I saw this title, Brothers, and I'm a huge Winnie the Pooh fan, and he always says, "Oh bother." And so I just thought the termite tenting was not a bother at all. Thankfully, we were still in the rental house and had planned to have the tenting done before we moved in. We know what dry rot is coming from Michigan, but we don't have termites, and we learned a lot about termites and subterranean termites. And fortunately, this house was in great shape. It had like a little bit of old indications of activity, but again, it wasn't current, it was old, and so they had probably already done remediation for that, and so there was just some minor dry rot repair really that needed to be done, and then the termite situation was all handled. I want to show you here, I'm stamping 5 of these little bugs from an old stamp set that I have so that I can cut them out on my Scan and Cut. And then I have this tool that I found. It's a suction cup grip. It's for changing like the glass on tablets or phones, but it works great for inking. And so I wanted to just show you here that I have this little piece of paper that I cut at 1 inch wide so that I can use it as a base and get 4 of these stamped by moving it up and then flipping it over. And then for my last one in the middle, I just kind of eyeball it, make sure that it works. I do this a lot of times when I need multiple images. It makes it so you can stamp from one side and the other. Now I will take these and cut them on my Scan and Cut, and I will have a short tutorial here, so you can skip ahead to the next chapter if you don't need the Scan and Cut tutorial. I'm going to walk through the steps real quick for how to use the Scan and Cut. If you want to skip this, I'll have a chapter title so you can just jump ahead. I printed out these mice on just general typing paper from the internet. Close to my heart does not allow their images to be cut in the Scan and Cut for show. So the first thing you do is load your mat, and then you select Scan, Direct Cut, and I'm going to just have it load right to the machine. Under this wrench, you can decide if your sheet is 12 by 6 or 12 by 12, and also if it's a color image or if it's more black and white. It's scanned, and now I'm just moving these arrows to shrink the size of the paper that I want the Scan and Cut to acknowledge. I try to do this because like all those little lines that you saw to the left would actually be cuts, but that's just scars in my mat. They're not really images that I want to cut. So here I just am expanding the view in the preview to look at the outside of my images, and they look like they're going to cut well. So I'm not going to expand the border. I'm just going to make sure that I only have my 3 mice, and that's all I have here. If I had had other images, as I had scrolled through the different things, it would have popped a red box around a cut, and then I would have just deleted that. So then you say next, select Cut, and then Start. And the SDX series of Scan and Cuts have a smart sensor to know the depth of your cardstock, so it automatically adjusts the cutting depth to cut out the cardstock nicely. While we're watching them cut it out here, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and give a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. That would be great. That helps all of us that are on YouTube with content that would be helpful to other people. it's done cutting, you just say finish cut, and then without unloading the mat, I go ahead and take my cut images off. Like I said, this is typing paper, so it's a little more difficult to come off the mat. One of the things that I do after I am finished with the scan and cut for the day, at the end of the day as I'm putting tools away, I will re-stick my mat with the Zig Blue 2-way glue. That means that it has overnight minimally to cure before I use it again. So now after I cut those the first time, I'm going back and I'm going to adjust the outline on my image. So I bumped that up to a 0.04, and then I'm adding that orange piece of cardstock, and I'm doing something bright so that you can see what that 0.04 offset is. It's the same steps. Once you've set your offset, you then say next, go into cut and start. Again, it's smart and it senses the thickness of the cardstock, and it will just cut out those 3. And then you can do this with letters or titles. You can do multiple steps of this 0.04 offset, but that is the smallest you can go. I will put the link to my video that goes slower through this process for you below the description. Okay, so now our base is dry and I want to add some stamping to it, because just like Tara had in her, or Tara, I guess I don't know how she says that, in her layout, she had some of these kind of chevron arrows on the top side and bottom, and I don't know if she did hers by hand or if it is a stamp. I'm obviously using a stamp in 2nd generation Harbour. Again, I kept my background lighter than the photos, because the photo doesn't have a lot of interest. There's not people involved. It's just a tent on a house. I didn't want to lose the photo with the background being bold. So here you can see the results of cutting those beetles out from the scan and cut. And then I'm using my background element stamp now with Papaya to do more of that background noise. Again, in 2nd generation, I probably could have gotten away with it in 1st generation with the Paprika, but again, I want my photos to be the focus, and since the cardstock and the paper from Hey Handsome is darker and richer than the background, it automatically, your eye is automatically drawn to that. So that's exactly what I want to have happen. And I like to write out my journaling. I am a notorious creative speller, meaning I can spell the same word multiple ways within one paragraph. And to ensure that my family doesn't have too many instances to laugh at me in the future, I know they already have some. I do like to write out my journaling ahead of time and make sure that I have my spelling corrected. So I will show you that here after I get all of my little beetles placed. As I'm wrapping up with the last of this layout, I do want to give Mel W a huge shout out and a congratulations on reaching the 500 subscriber milestone. That's huge. And Mel is one of those YouTube creators that goes out and supports other YouTube channels and comments on their videos and just interacts, and she does a great job with that. I want to do more of that, and I try to, but I watch most of my YouTube when I am in bed and not with a easy keyboard. It's on a tablet and I'm falling asleep. So thank you, Mel, for all your support. Congratulations on your 500 subscribers. I hope that your channel continues to grow and we get to see more of your creations. So all of the links for people celebrating Mel are in the description below. Also, be sure to check out the May I Scrap Lift You playlist for those playing along. And my scrap lift is for Tara O'Rourke for May 16th. All of the products used will also be in the descriptions. Blessings.